What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Well, it looks like Square Enix can't catch a break today as we're covering two different leaks from the company. One being the next major release for the PlayStation 5, and the other being a game that hasn't even been announced yet, so we'll go over all of that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Microsoft commenting on the Xbox One and how it's now become legacy for their first-party developers, and we'll also be taking a look at the Famitsu sales charts as there's a bit of a surprising entry there in the top 10 games. So if you guys enjoy these videos, make sure to hit that like button, helps out a ton, and if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. We're going to start today with Atlus's newest intellectual property they've announced, that's Metaphor, as we did get word of the different platforms that'll release on outside of the Xbox Series, which the way it works with Microsoft is with many of these companies that appear in the showcase, there's like a 48-hour clause where it can only be the Xbox logo next to the game in press releases. But now that that's up, we can see over on Gematsu. It is also coming out on the PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, and PC through Steam. People noticed immediately there's no Switch version, and that kind of goes along with Persona 3 Reload that won't have a Switch version either. And this continues to play into the idea that maybe these games would be announced in a direct. I guess the idea of Persona 5 Tactica, that kind of throws that theory off, although that is coming out this year, whereas both Metaphor and Persona 3 Reload are out next year. It's also the possibility that Metaphor is coming out on Nintendo's next generation platform, considering it could end up releasing in the second half of 2024, around the time when many people figure Nintendo will release or already have released their next platform. So I guess we'll see. A direct is apparently rumored in the next couple of weeks, and I guess then we'll find out if either Metaphor or Persona 3 Reload are getting announced for a platform there. Also, we did get a release date for the Lara Croft collection on the Switch. It's actually coming out in a couple of weeks on June 29th, and it's set for the price of $25. There is a trailer that was released alongside of this, and this is for two different Tomb Raider games that kind of older now. I mean, for example, one came out in 2010 on the Xbox 360, but the two different games, Lara Croft and the Guardian of Light, and Lara Croft and the Temple of Osiris. I guess the kind of cool thing about this is it has up to 4-player co-op, so if you have some friends, you guys can hang out and kind of play through these games. I think I would like to see at this point the older Tomb Raider trilogy come to the Switch. I mean, at the very least, Tomb Raider 2013 or Rise of the Tomb Raider. I know Shadow Tomb Raider, that was on like the Xbox One and PS4, yes, but it certainly pushed those systems quite heavily. Still, though, I think it would be fun to see that entire trilogy on the Switch, or who knows, maybe Nintendo's next platform, since we are at least, we believe, coming up to that point there. But I guess at the bare minimum, there is some sort of Tomb Raider representation on the Switch, that coming out in about 2 weeks. Oh, and we did get our ESRB rating for Spider-Man 2 as expected, since it's coming up in October, and Insomniac seems very confident that it will be making that release date. But we can see this posted up over on the ESRB website for Spider-Man 2 coming in at a teen rating as expected. There's also a pretty large summary here going over several things that happened in the game that got it the teen rating, but something that was brought up, and I figured we'd explain it once again, in-game purchases, PlayStation 5. So people immediately thought, okay, microtransactions, is that what's happening here? Not necessarily. This could be for downloadable content, for example, or different editions and stuff that they release for the game, which we know there are different editions and all of that. So I don't think you're going to be spending money for added currency or extra experience, nothing like that. I think this is pretty standard stuff with just more things to buy after the fact, especially with Spider-Man on the PS4 getting DLC and that sort of thing. Something tells me we'll probably see DLC for Spider-Man 2, but exciting stuff. Looking forward to playing this one in October. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Square Enix and a couple of leaks that have happened here. We're going to split these up, however, into two different sections, because the first one is pretty serious business if you're someone who's looking forward to Final Fantasy XVI, especially if you're someone who's looking forward to Final Fantasy XVI and played through the demo, because the demo itself certainly grabbed me more than I was expecting. And I think the biggest thing here is the combat was already kind of controversial, but I looked at that and said, okay, well, it's more of an action-based Final Fantasy. That's fine. But Clive as a character, just based on some of the previews and the early coverage I've seen, and even Square Enix themselves explain the game, didn't really grab me as much for a protagonist. But after that demo, even though it was like 60 to 70% cutscenes, has certainly drawn me in and definitely got the story running off and running with a bang, and I'm looking forward to picking it up day one next week. The problem is, this game is one that I would not like spoiled, just across the board. There's a lot that could be spoiled, and well, take a look. This posted up over on Reddit. It appears someone does indeed have the game. And initially I saw this screenshot and I thought, well, hold on, because this got posted up a day or so ago. Maybe somebody just saw it coming through the warehouse. Oh, look, here's fun. Let me take a picture with it real quick. I'll post it up. Well, the problem here is that after this picture was posted up on 4chan, screenshots and videos of the early parts of the game started to follow up, which basically you can line up the series of events. Yeah, most likely one of these fell off the back of a truck somewhere or snuck out the back of a warehouse. Someone's playing through the game and posting up footage and all kinds of stuff that will probably spoil the game. Because remember, the game itself apparently doesn't need a day one patch. So what they are playing is the final build and what we would be playing next week. And as I mentioned, this is a game where a lot of stuff can be spoiled. Yes, the story, which again is very compelling, I would absolutely recommend people just play through the demo, get things started because your save data carries over and you'll see what I'm talking about there. But also those icon battles, which they even give you an extra one in the demo just because, yeah, they are that like compelling and interesting to see through. And it is a lot of stuff that's kind of just there as like the ooh-ah effect of kind of interactive movies at times, but it still looks really, really cool. And those are things I would not want to be spoiled. And it's going to be tough because it's going to be very, very fun, I'm sure, for some people who have the game early to try to spoil it for others. So on Twitter, on places with Reddit, forums, you're going to want to go on media blackout for this one. So good luck to everyone out there. I would mute keywords because, yes, the game is out there and something tells me it's going to start popping up all over the place as people start to play through it. I guess the one good thing here is the PS5 is not cracked wide open like the Switch, so it's not just going to start being dumped online and everyone start to play it. At this point, it seems like it's kind of confined to one or two people that have the game. Next up, let's talk about the other leak from Square Enix, and this is one that I'm pretty excited about because, one, it plays into what Square has been doing a lot recently, which is just remastering a bunch of games from their past, ones you wouldn't even expect, like Tactics Ogre. I mean, who saw that coming? But in this case, it looks like Square is going to continue on with what they've been doing with Star Ocean. And there's a logo that popped up, and you can see this. This is from Square's own website that was then re-uploaded and posted all over the place. RPG site, for example, has the Star Ocean, the second story R posted. And people are trying to figure out, is this a remake or a remastered? Well, based on what they had done previously, where they did First Departure R, and that was basically a remaster of the PSP Star Ocean game, I'm kind of thinking this is just going to be a remaster of the second story from the PlayStation. That came out in either 97 or I think it was 98, but it came out then in like the late 90s, and for most people, this is the best Star Ocean that came out. It was kind of downhill from there. Although I did like Star Ocean till the end of time. I thought that was a pretty good follow-up, but I think most people will agree that it's peaked right around this late PS1 era. And while I think I'd prefer a remake, looking at the art style for it, it still aged pretty well. This was the time period where we saw some very rough 3D games where the big push at that time was to show off how many polygons and triangles and stuff that your system could push. But I liked the effect that some of these developers went with, where they still kind of embraced the 16-bit era sprite, but put it on like the 3D backdrop kind of, and that's what we had here with Star Ocean on the PS1. So yeah, I would like to see this at least come out in some capacity, and based on what they did with First Departure R, I'm expecting this to come out probably PlayStation, probably on Switch. Who knows? Maybe Microsoft drops a Game Pass bag for Square and they drop it right there too. At that point, it would be nice to have a good Star Ocean game come out. I guess the most recent one wasn't the worst Star Ocean game they've put out. Still wasn't the bar of quality that we saw back then on the PS1 and the PS2. So I guess this is something that could be announced at any time. Wasn't there talk about a Nintendo Direct coming up? Maybe that's where they're going to do it. We'll see. Next up, let's talk about Microsoft and their Xbox One, which is a logo, if you'll notice, that was pretty much absent completely from their most recent showcase as they were showing off all these new games from their first-party developers. And Axios did talk with Matt Booty at Xbox about that situation, and we can see this posted up there over on Axios, where they say we've moved on to Gen 9. This, according to Matt Booty, with no internal teams working on games for the older gen consoles outside of support for ongoing games like Minecraft. It is also noted here that the overall cross-gen period was longer than usual or anticipated, and some of that probably has to do with it being supply constraint for both the Xbox Series and the PS5 that made it a bit harder to get this generation really off and running. But now that seems to be alleviated with the PS5 being in stock pretty consistently, and even Phil Spencer himself saying that the Xbox Series was going to see more and more stock at this time, seems like it's a good point to move on and start taking advantage of the Xbox Series platform specifically. But Matt Booty also noted that Microsoft's Gen 9 games are playable on the Xbox One console through Microsoft's streaming cloud tech. And according to him, that's how we're going to maintain support, which I guess marks the end of the Xbox One generation officially. Again, we saw cross-gen for a while there, but now you can put that in the rearview mirror. It's pretty much it. And with what we've seen for Redfall being just the Xbox Series, again, not the best way to launch next gen for Microsoft. That was also their move to $70 games, which also signaled that move. And now we have Starfield coming up, then Forza, and we've already seen the slate of titles that they have upcoming with things like Fable, Avowed, Hellblade 2, all these games releasing specifically on the Xbox Series system. So the writing was on the wall. We pretty much figured it since we didn't see any of the Xbox One logos during that showcase, but it's good to know officially that yes, they've all moved on internally from the Xbox One, which also makes me wonder about updates for current Xbox One games that still are seeing new seasons, like Sea of Thieves, for example. Will Rare eventually move on from that to a new Xbox Series game like Everwild, or will they continue to support Sea of Thieves in like season 17 or something, still on the Xbox One? Will there be a cutoff period for that? So still some questions there, but at least for now, don't expect to see any Xbox One logos going forward in Microsoft Showcase. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about the Famitsu sales charts. And I was very interested in this past week because we do see an interesting game and an interesting skew in the top 10 for games. And we once again see the Switch continue to dominate in Japan like it does basically every single week. But let's take a look here at the top 10 for games. With The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom at the top, 46,644. It has been slowing down week over week, but still, it already accumulating 1.64 million units in Japan. That's incredible stuff, how rapidly it's been able to do that. And in fact, it's technically less than 600,000 copies now behind Breath of the Wild. And at its current pace, it might be able to run it down by the end of this year in Japan. We'll see how the numbers continue to shake out here. And then we have Diablo 4. That's on the PS5, 24,375. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, of course. Then we have Diablo 4 on the PS4. And then number 5, Xbox Series. I don't know if I've ever seen this before in Japan, an Xbox Series game in the top 10. And in fact, this is the Diablo 4 bundle, 8,524, because they do technically count bundles like this in the Famitsu sales charts. So this would have been the game that obviously got bundled with the system. And then we have Street Fighter 6, Minecraft on the Switch, Street Fighter 6, Nintendo Switch Sports, and The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Now, moving over to the hardware, the Switch was up week on week to over 104,413. We don't need a Switch 2. Let's just take the Switch another 10 years. Let's see what happens. But still, 104,000, incredibly impressive stuff for the Switch that is more than 6 years old now. The PS5, 43,609. The Xbox Series, 9,116. So if you look at that compared to the bundles, I mean, without Diablo 4, the Xbox Series would have done like 600 systems. So again, that bundle really helped them. The PS4, 1,852. Then the 3DS, 36. What's really interesting about this, though, is we heard Microsoft and Phil Spencer specifically discuss Japan and how they have a lot of work to do there, and they want to make it so that the Xbox is a more prominent brand, specifically when we walk into stores and just more representation for the Xbox across the board. And you see something like this with it being bundled with a game like Diablo 4. Yes, Diablo 4, big time game just across the world, right? And even in Japan doing pretty well. But what if they were able to pair it with games that are maybe a bit more notable in Japan? Because we see them kind of aligning with Atlas. Makes you wonder about maybe some potential bundles that they could seek out from Japanese publishers and developers and putting it alongside the Xbox, even just in the retail box itself. So certainly a possibility and something that I think would at least help them in Japan, because otherwise it is certainly a struggle for them to move Xbox systems. And then they turn around and see the Switch, again, in its 7th year, selling over 100,000 systems without any brand new release. That's just Zelda carrying the thing. So yeah, impressive stuff there for Nintendo, but maybe Microsoft's figuring something out here. We'll see in the coming weeks, but I mean, I don't know the last time, if ever, that I've seen an Xbox game, even though it is a bundle with the system, in the top 10 for games in Japan. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're gonna take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, with the demo now out and release happening next week, are you picking up Final Fantasy XVI? 32% say yes, buying it ASAP. 22% say yes, but later on sale, or when it comes out on PC, as we already know that is happening. 13% say no, I don't have a PS5, but I'm interested. 32% say no, I'm not interested. That's actually pretty good, having 68% of people say that they're interested in some way. And I think that demo certainly turned a lot of people's opinion around, especially if they were kind of on the fence. If you were already excited for it, it was really cool to have a demo so you could get some bit of that game played now. But wow, that demo hit hard, and it certainly made me interested in Clive and what story he has to tell when the game comes out next week. So good stuff there. Again, I'm picking that thing up day one and probably going to play through it pretty quickly based on what we've seen so far in the demo. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Yuki saying, although the infrastructure for game streaming isn't fully developed yet, Sony's trying to get their ducks in a row by the time the infrastructure is fully formed. And that's what a lot of these companies are doing as a just-in-case measure. Also for Sony, they at least see that there is benefit to having that with your subscription service for cloud streaming, and it's like, why not? Add it in. If it takes off, great. We're in position to take advantage of it. If it doesn't, that's fine. We can just kind of leave it there and not necessarily put more and more investment into it and just continue what they've been doing. So yeah, it's a good way to at least hedge their bets going forward, because while I don't necessarily look at cloud streaming as a replacement for the console, I do see the benefits as a supplementary service for a subscription that you might already be paying for. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today, whether it's Final Fantasy XVI leaking out online now with screenshots and footage showing up a week before release. And then also, what about Star Ocean's second story seemingly getting a remaster? And then the Xbox One, Microsoft finally living in the past. Are you relieved to hear that? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.